Hey, everybody, this is Lauren Delisa Coleman, and I am about to bring you another episode of the Inside series that we are bringing you only right here at film.io. We're still within the Blackstar Film Festival taking place in Philadelphia, and I am here with another filmmaker who has his film within the festival is showing, and I will welcome him in just a couple of minutes, and I can't wait to get into everything and anything about his film. The future isn't what it used to be. So first of all, Adeyemi Michael, thank you so much for joining us here at film.io. And as I said, eager to get into anything and everything about your film. Why don't we start with first a quick synopsis for our viewers about what this film is all about?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So The Future Isn't What It Used to Be is written by Courttia Newland and directed by myself and produced by Fiona Lamptey, I should say. The film is set in the year 2080. And I guess, the backdrop of the film is it's set in a world where sort of climate change has ravaged the universe that the film is set in, which is Earth. And basically only a few people survive. And the film follows one of these few people, Des, who basically finds this time capsule. And the contents of the time capsule contains the personal belongings of someone who's been cryopreserved, who's basically been frozen. And so they've been frozen because they're waiting for a cure to be found for the throat cancer that they have. And so Des goes on this quest to find this person with the contents of the belongings that they find. Obviously, at this stage, there are very few people that survive. And so it's essentially this story of trying to get to this other person who they are hoping is still alive.
It is a real, adventure that they're on, as many films, that take place far into the future are. It was really quite fascinating to watch. And I guess, these days with so many things going on, I couldn't help but kind of think, these times where things like seem to be so desolate are not that distant anymore. Do you know what I mean? When you were making the film or shooting it rather, obviously this was prior, to COVID. But did you have any inkling, I guess, as to what was going to come about, or how did you maybe get the inspiration to shoot? Because obviously a lot of it is stark in a very cool way, right? And you have to imagine what things would be like, in that 2080 based on what we're dealing with today. So how did you kind of work with your DP on that to kind of capture the look of it and also just to be able to tell the story?
Interestingly enough, the film was written pre-COVID. And so we were actually supposed to shoot on the week that we went into lockdown. So we actually shot.
Seriously? Oh, no way.
And so, the shoot got shut down. And so, some things happen, everything happens for a reason, right? And so it really helped me to sort of find a way of visualizing, and not even just visualizing, but like getting an emotion that is palatable, because prior to that, it was hard to understand and take the script and be like, okay, this is what I feel about it. And then COVID happened,
right.
And the film really speaks to a lot of, the experiences that many people have gone through in this last year of isolation, loneliness, companionship, togetherness, community. All of these types of themes are sort of like apparent in the film. And so it just gave more texture to sort of be able to sort of deal with, what the emotion and what what inevitably we wanted people to feel for the film. And it's very different when you're, as a director trying to tell a story from someone else's writing. You're having to sort of delve into another well of imagination. And so that really helped me. And I think visually, because of the way in which the sort of the world is written within the script, I feel like, and even the way the script is written in itself, there was very little descriptive detail. And it was mainly about what was happening. And so we had to sort of like pull together like, how do you say, a rationale for the world, you know, like how the world operates. Like, you know, for example, in the first half of the film, you know, everything happens outside. Nothing lives. Like the world, you know, the world in itself, that the character exists in outside is doesn't allow life to sort of be reproduced. So you see no plants, you see no birds. You know, the first thing you see is them sniffing a dead bird. You know, but then when we come inside and we find Amari, who is this person who's left this time capsule behind that Des is on the quest to find. She has like water. She has like, you know, food that's been packed, yes, from a previous period, but like there's a level of life that doesn't exist outside, you know? And so, you know, within the script, there are elements where outside is very dark. And then the moment we get inside, yes, there is a darkness, but there's hope. There's an element of light, and somehow so we change the language there visually, you know? And even, for example, you know, visually throughout the film, because it's a non-dialogue film, one of the main things for us was never to sort of shoot the film in a, you know, reverse shot type of way, because it's not a film where there's conversational dialogue that's happening between characters.
Right.
We are observing, we're there sort of like being part of this environment too. And it gives us a bit more of a sort of visceral experience, as opposed to sort of like, sometimes when you watch films, and I mean, it's another technique, but we opted for not sort of shooting, you know, the sort of classic cuts and takes. You know, there are times when that happens, and there's times where, for example, towards the end of the film, where the energy of the camera language changes when basically shit's about to hit the fan, essentially, you know, where, you know, Des, the person from outside, feels threatened, that someone from outside could come and essentially destroy this new world that they found. And so, you know, the camera language changes in those moments. And I guess, you know, when you are making a film and you're making those sort of decisions, you're asking yourself, and we were asking ourselves, well, visually, you know, what does the camera need to do here? You know, should we be with? Who is the focus? You know, what is the focus? And so that's what really shapes, you know, the decision making. At times you can, you know, I've imparted obviously like my sort of aesthetic beliefs and values and whatnot.
Right.
But, you know, it comes from the script, you know, so yeah.
Was that challenging though? I mean, it sounds like it was, to be able to, I mean, envision what you want the viewer to see at the same time you're shooting something which doesn't have dialogue. So, you know, that has to be very, very challenging. And would you say that it's more time consuming, or did you find yourself getting into a rhythm, or how did you, you know, kind of craft that as the director? Because, you know, it's not that you can, you know, say, give it with more emotion or faster or shorter. Do you know what I mean? You're really dealing with, it's almost like maybe shooting dance or something, right?
So interestingly enough, it's great that you asked that question, because, you know, the script was a lot shorter than what the film ended up becoming.
Really?
And because we opted to shoot scenes and hold them and allow things to play out, it then made the film longer. And, you know, when you're working with actors, sometimes, and a lot of the time, you know, you need to give them room to breathe and to do things and impart upon the film their artistry too. And so, you know, because I come from a very sort of documentary specialism, observational documentary is kind of like is where I sort of, that was my training ground. And so within that sort of medium and sort of like that direct cinema approach, you kind of let things play out. You allow things to happen. And so, you know, a large part of the way we shot the film was for me anyway, was to allow the actors to feel those moments out, because, there was a reference of a film called Border that I'd seen previously. I think it came out in 2018, played at BFI London. And it was really this sort of like, this instinctual primal interaction, because the film is set between two characters, this film in particular, as that one was, who were kind of no longer human in the way in which we understand now. And so there is a nature that they're sort of discovering one another, like how animals come, in the wild, they may encounter one another and they sniff each other, they try and figure each other out. And so there's a lot of that happens. So I felt like we needed the opportunity for the characters to breathe within that, because, somehow when you're shooting a film that doesn't have dialogue, and this was my sort of rationale, was that, people need to see what's happening as opposed to be told, because they're not being told. So I needed to give the characters the opportunity to allow for them to give the explanation visually through their actions on screen. So, if that makes any sense, I feel like a lot of the direction comes from me giving room and space, but it's also the emotional cues, because, when you shoot a film, any film, most films, you never shoot them sequentially. You're never shooting a film from the first act to the third act in order. And, it's very rare that people do that. People do, but it's very rare. And so, we're constantly like hopping from one scene to another. You might start at the beginning and then you're shooting a third of the way through, and then you come back to the second part from the beginning. It just depends on how things work on the schedule. So a large part of it was just making sure that the characters understood what their emotional cues were for each scene. And so that was one of the major tools that I, really stuck to, because, when you're trying to direct, something like this that is very heavily weighted on those emotions and how those emotions play out, you kind of really need to make sure that at every given moment and point that those scenes link, from one scene to another emotionally. And so I feel like I gave them room, but I also was kind of like, understanding what the emotional cues were, because again, the film is extremely bleak in moments, but it's also, there is an element of hope. I want to say it's bleak, but if you really think about the film and you think about the end of the film, there is a bleakness, but it's actually saying, but actually maybe these two might make it, or maybe they may come back together, in terms of the person that gets sort of like shooed away, the feral man that comes to the window. Maybe they do figure it out at some point. But then, I guess, and this is me going off topic a little bit, but, maybe in fact, this idea of community and togetherness, they do figure out. But like, actually, the message of the film is that we as humans, we need to figure it out. We need to know that we actually really need each other for this thing to work. And so yeah, that's a long way without. Yeah. But yeah.
Very cool. I mean, what would you say was the biggest or most impactful thing that you learned while you were making this film, as either as a professional or personally, that you would want to be able to share?
Biggest thing I learned whilst making this film, like, I mean, I love my team, I really love my team. I love the people that I work with, like, and, every time we go out and we're in the trenches, we just get it done. Do you get what I mean? And when I work with this particular team, like, we really, and I get that, and I mean, I've always understood that, like, actually it's not just me, often it's like the director. I've never felt that way. I'm a filmmaker, I see and understand the laws of engagement that have to happen when you are making a film. You know, like everyone is coming together to make this one thing work and happen. And, you know, what you end up seeing, you know, is the culmination of everyone's work, you know, and that's something that I've not just learned on this, but I've realized even more, as always, how important that is.
It sounds like it was reinforced.
Oh, totally. Because again, you know, typically the films I've made in the past, the location in this film is very, very strong, and it gives the opportunity for an audience to be transported into the world.
True. And
it's the same with previous films that I've done, but you know, the world building isn't as much, you know, like it's not as emphasized because it's not rooted, it hasn't always been rooted in the same fictional space. You know, I've been working with documentary and sort of melding, you know, doc and fiction and doc and fiction as form, but then also genre. Whereas this is strictly fiction and genre. It's a genre film, but it's fictional as well. And so typically those worlds, you know, the way in which we had to build this one was totally different. You know, from the costumes to, which I worked with, you know, on previous films, but like the set design, that was another level, you know, and that really, really let me know and understand, oh, okay, you know, even with the budget that we were working on, I think what we pulled together to give the feeling of this world is large in part to everyone's effort, from makeup to set design to location scouts to like DP, you know. And oftentimes it's you know, people are like, oh, you made a sick film, and you know, you directed it heavy, but no, it's the team. You know, the team really came together on it, and you know, I think, you know, for me, having the core people that I work with in my producer and DP, them lot they're heavyweights, man. And they make me look
to
good.
be able to have a feeling like that, right?
Yeah,
and maybe that's what contributed to, you know, what's up with the Lionsgate Star Awards. I mean, that's like no joke, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you know, Blackstar said that, you know, you're nominated for this Lionsgate Star Award. I didn't know much about it. You know, I've played at Blackstar for the last, you know what, check it. I went to Blackstar for the first time in 2017. I remember because I was just, you know, I'm based in London, right? But like, I'm always on this side of the pond. I'm actually in DC at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm always on this side of the pond, partly because my partner's here now. And, you know, back then, you know, it wasn't because of that, because, you know, I was always shooting and working on films. And I went with the idea and saying, you know, I went to the festival, experienced it, was like, I fell in love. I was like, how have I not known about this? And how have I not played my previous films there? And so I made it a point to say to myself that every single year, if possible, I want a film in Blackstar. Like, nice. And so in 2018, I had a film. I think, in 2019, I had a film, 2020 and 2021, you know? And so ever since, I've just sort of I've not really looked back, and I've kind of looked at it as a space to sort of like always be able to share my work at any given moment, you know. And I really, you know, they really energized me at a point in my career where I was feeling really low, and they didn't know that, but like the space gave me that feeling. And so to be nominated for an award, you know, I think this is the first time with one of the films I've played. It's great, like, but the award is to play. Right. You know, the award is to make the film.
But it's nice to be recognized, especially with something like this. I mean, I love the title, like Best Speculative Fiction. You know, that has to make you feel good, especially being delayed, you know, through COVID, especially having to deal with a film without dialogue. You know, it's just like, it's always nice to be recognized. So, you know, congrats on that.
It is. Yeah, it's great to be recognized. I'm very happy to sort of like, you know, have this nomination. And, you know, I think the greatest thing is to just continue to make the work and to continue to show at the festival and make more work, you know, like, and keep going. I'm excited about going down to the festival in tomorrow and seeing everyone, because I haven't seen. I mean, we all haven't. Do you know what I mean? I've been going to the festival since the last 4 years, and it's a great place to be. Great environment for Black filmmakers to really share their work and just be recognized, full stop. So
it's wonderful. I'm just so glad that, all these good vibes are coming, to you, and you just seem so dedicated, Adeyemi. So I'm glad as well that you could take the time to be able to speak with us, especially, in DC, getting ready to go to Philadelphia. And, there's just like everybody is everywhere. We're all connected, so long as we have a stable connection, we're all able to do all kinds of things now. Right. So this is, it's great. And I'm glad you're able to experience the festival both virtually and, physically now. So, big up with everything, and, congrats on the award. And so I think that that's a great place to be able to maybe close. And so everybody, don't forget to look out for this film and more to come from Adeyemi. I am Lauren Delisa Coleman, and you've been watching the Inside series right here on film.io.